This is the Sunshine Cathedral perspective. White and cis gay men can do better. Justice means all of us. Marriage equality is a reality in many parts of the world. Trans rights have gained recognition, and queer people are more visible than ever. But there's still a huge gap in our overall pursuit of equality. There is a troubling trend of complacency among white, cisgender gay men who, despite our own struggles for rights, often fail to extend our advocacy to the more marginalized, queer-presenting members of our community. According to Christian Hotchkiss, writing for Watermark Out News, for queer-presenting people, those who don't fit the stereotypical or palatable image of a gay person, the struggle is far from over. Hotchkiss says, quote, "A dangerous and persistent myth continues to circulate that the LGBTQIA+ rights movement is primarily a gay man's issue. For too long, the narrative of LGBTQIA+ rights has been dominated by white, cisgender, often wealthy gay men. As a result, unique challenges faced by lesbian, bisexual, transgender, nonbinary, and queer-presenting individuals have been sidelined. And the intersections of race, class, and gender expression have been overlooked." End quote. And he continues, queer-presenting people who embrace gender nonconformity or defy mainstream expectations of gender expression, often face the worst discrimination. Trans women of color, gender nonconforming individuals, and those with more visible queer traits are at higher risk for violence, harassment, and systemic oppression. They're less likely to find safe employment, healthcare, or legal protection. Yet despite these disproportionate challenges, their voices are often silenced by those of us who benefit from a more socially acceptable form of queerness, end quote. Hotchkiss insists that the path forward isn't one of passive allyship, but of active solidarity. He says that white cis gay men need to, 1, use their privilege for advocacy. In conversation, we need to create opportunities for others to speak. 2, recognize the intersectionality of oppression. We must understand that our struggles are part of a broader fight, and that advocating for justice means fighting against all forms of oppression. 3, support trans and gender non-conforming individuals. Support trans and gender non-conforming individuals. Support trans and gender non-conforming individuals. And 4, confront internal biases. Even within the LGBTQ+ community, biases can persist. White, cis, and gay men must examine and dismantle our own prejudices, including transphobia, racism, and fat phobia. The work of equity and inclusion must start within our community itself. Hotchkiss warns that true justice for all LGBTQ+ individuals can't be achieved without addressing the disparities within our own ranks. It's time for white cis gay men to step forward, speak out, and advocate for queer-presenting individuals whose needs are still largely overlooked. Yeah. We were here, we've been here 19 years, and it was the first or second Easter we were here. And we often, it's hard to do now because we have other accoutrements we have to do, but back in the day when we were free to do all kinds of things, we would always wear Easter, Robert and I, Easter bonnets. In fact, other people would too. But we would get new ones every year. They'd be big, beautiful, whatever. And it was the first or second one, maybe the second one. I'm so proud of my big, beautiful bonnet. And we're doing the recessional, and people are, no, it's new, and like, oh, good, we're having fun in church. We're not taking ourselves too seriously or whatever, blah, blah, blah. I get to the back of the room towards the front doors, and there's this guy scowling and gives me a very clear one of these. Male presenting, white, 70-ish. You saw his face when I told the story, and you don't even know who it was, but you saw the face, right? You know who it was. And we have encountered that in the community over and over and over and over. Why is so much of your social circle diverse? Or why are we always talking about women's stuff? Well, because women are around. I mean, because they're here. Hello, because they matter. They have lives. Or why? Once again, trans. You don't get to be tired of trans. It doesn't get to be boring or exhausting for you. These people are fighting for their lives, and you just, oh, I'm tired of hearing it. You'll be okay. We're trying to keep them off the street. We're trying to keep needles out of their arms. We're trying to keep people from beating them up. We're trying to find them housing and work that you're a little bothered by. You'll cope. You'll deal. So yeah, but that's the thing, is that how a lot of white gay men, maybe most white gay, how we have navigated the cruelty against gay people is to trade on the privilege we do have.
Yeah.
And I think the idea of giving that up is scary, because if we don't have that, we have no more weapons than anyone else has. And we see how that's working out for them, you know? So no, but if you enjoy white privilege, and if you're white, you do. And if you enjoy male privilege, and if you're male, you do. And if you enjoy class privilege, and if you're not on SNAP or WIC or living in subsidized housing, you do. If you have these privileges, we don't want to take your happiness away from you. We want you to use what you have that other people don't have to help them, because we all have privilege and we all have peril. And the point of the privilege is to protect people from peril.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, just notice where you're luckier than the next person, and then advocate for that person.
Yeah.
Because you have some distance, some safety that maybe they don't have. And so you can speak up in ways maybe they can't, either because they're afraid, or maybe because they're just too busy trying to keep a roof over their head, or themselves out of jail, or themselves sober, or whatever. If you have the little extra, use that. Instead of being tired about hearing trans people, care about trans people. Instead of being cared, oh, this women's libs thing's been going on forever. Oh, it's just the suffragists. But why is that?
Yeah.
Why do people have to fight for recognition and rights and equity and equality? So, yes, some of us are a little luckier in some ways. That's not about being ashamed. That's being called to action. That's about being responsible. That's about, okay, not everyone got this break, so I'm going to use what I have to help other people. Some people have breaks that you didn't get, and hopefully they'll help you. That's what it's about. We all have some problems. We all have some gifts, and we're meant to use our gifts to help people with their problems. That's not hard.
Yeah.
You can call it socialism. You can call it liberalism. You can call it woke. Jesus called it the gospel.
Yeah.
That's the church. That's the message. So yes, don't be ashamed for being white, male, cis, whatever. But know that you get some benefit from that, and then use that to care about and advocate people who don't have that.
You know, I think we all are in a place to help others. And some are more blessed, if you will, to help more than others can help. But I think when we really, think about this topic, when we really look at this topic, is not these are not things. People are not asking for a hand now. They're asking for a hand up. And sometimes it's about being able to use your privilege to help not just individual, but a whole community to rise and be honored and be respected, and to use your status, to use your privilege, to use your voice, and advocating for somebody who might be on the margin, who might be like, there's nothing wrong with that. Get over yourselves. And if we are truly all in this together, as so many proclaim, we have to show that we're all in this together, and we have to work for the common good of all. I just remember in the early days of ACE, a lot of people said, it was the gay white men who came to the reason a lot around the gay ACE stuff happened was because of gay white men. Well, that may have been true, and look at how that expanded over time to include more and more people. And I think we have the same kind of issue to remind people of today. Use your privilege, use your power, use your money, use your mouth, use whatever to really help others, and not just stop with yourself or people who look like you or people who are in your circle. Get outside of your circle. You can do more.
Right.
Sometimes people complain, oh, the only people who show up to these things, to these cocktail things or whatever, are the only ones who become sponsors of these big events, or the only ones who show up, or the only ones who sign up to give, are rich white guys. Okay, why? Why is that? Who has the time? Who has the resources? Who has the money? Who can afford the visibility? That's that. So my question isn't why is it old white guys. My question is, why is it so few? Why aren't more old white guys coming to buy the $50, the $100, the $200 plate dinner to help trans people, to help homeless people, to help sex workers, to help gay kids who need adoption? I'm not mad that old white guys. I'm thinking that those old white guys they're the ones getting it. They're using their privilege to help. So I'm not mad that they're there. I'm concerned that why aren't their numbers doubled or tripled?
Right. Privilege or perceived privilege gets in the way, and it comes down to empathy. Right. Can you envision yourself in someone else's shoes. What is it like to be a queer woman? What is it like to be a trans woman of color? What is it like to be non-binary, particularly in today's political age, you know, where people are really being targeted? You have to wonder, and this is just me, but you have to wonder if the cis, gay white men, they envision themselves as protected. But are they? But are they really?
Yes, even that is
Yeah.
a bit of a...
Yeah, that's a little bit of a conundrum there, yeah.
Illusion.
That doesn't mean they're not coming for you. It means they're coming for you last.
Yeah, exactly.
You're not safe.
No.
Wow, my brain is filled with mishmash right now. On that last point, my husband Michael and I had a friend, a cis white gay male, and we were talking about privilege, and he didn't understand what we meant when we talked about privilege. We finally said to him, well, you're a gay white male. There are parts of you that you can hide from society if you choose to. I'm a gay black male. I can probably hide my gayness, but I can't hide my blackness. And your privilege in being a white person goes to that conversation. I remember, you know, I started hanging out in bars when I was old enough in the 70s, and they were some of the most segregated places that you could go to. There was a white bar and a black bar. Very few did they ever mix. I think now in this world it's quite different, where at least we can all hang out together. It's difficult to explain, I think, to people what their privilege is until you sit them down and break it down for them piece by piece by piece. And for them to not understand that eventually the bad guys are going to come after them too. It's that old poem. They went for this and nobody did. They went for that. And when they finally got to that last bastion of privilege, there was nobody to protect them.
Yeah.
It's a poem. It may be trite to a lot of people, and it is extremely true.
Rings true, yeah.
If we don't understand that today,
Yeah.
heaven help us.
Almost 20 years ago, Robert and I were sitting in a staff meeting. We were the new kids. We're sitting in a staff meeting. You weren't on staff yet. And, but there were, I don't know, 4 or 5 people, 6 maybe, around the table. And we're just back from like Boston and New York. We're just moved in the Southeast. We're whatever. I showed up with a T-shirt that offended an entire community, but it was just standard, it's where. So anyway, culture shock, new life. We're not in the People's Republic of Manhattan anymore, and so we come, and so we're sitting at the table, and I just talked about privilege or whatever, about with our privilege and blah blah blah, and to a person they're like, oh, we don't feel privileged. We're not privileged, blah, blah. And I snapped. I said, oh, well, then let's just go to City Hall right now and get married. This is 2006. There was no marriage. It was an insane thing to say. Well, let's just go to City Hall and get married right now then. Silence. I think I had to smooch up the people after that too. So, no, I'm likable. I promise you'll like me. I got a little crazy. I got ahead of myself. I was telling a professor when I was working on my doctorate that story that happened, and he just said, brother, I might have been a little softer, I might have been a little more gentle. Because he was a big activist, but he was also a really smooth sort of politician about things. He got a lot of things done. He's like, you might want to just come out swinging, especially when you're new.
And 20 years later, here we are. 20 years
Still around. I learned. I softened up a little bit.
Charge.
Softened up a little bit, but also I hope I haven't compromised those values.
No.
No.
You know what I mean? Because you've got to, first of all, you have to have a realistic view of what you've got going on, that you've got more than you realize, and also you've got more challenges than you realize.
Yeah.
And so to know your privilege and your peril is important. And then when you know what you have to help other people whose privileges and perils will be different.
Yeah.
But if we're all together, working together,